जय यशोदानन्दना जय व्रज जनरञ्जना जय यमुनातीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी जय यमुनातीरवनचारी जय कुंज बिहारी जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा 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 जय गुरुदेवा जय विश्वपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य स्तोत्रषत् श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति-वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विश्वपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य स्तोत्रषत् श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर महाराज की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Hare Krishna. We'll be doing two verses today. I will simply chant text 31 and then we'll discuss text 32. We're reading from Canto 3 entitled The Status Quo, Chapter 32 entitled Entanglement in Fruitive Activities, and texts 31 and 32. I will do 31 myself and we'll move to 32. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki 3:32-31 Iti etat kathitam gurvi jñānam tad brahma-darśanam yenānubuddhyate tattvam prakṛteḥ puruṣasya ca. Translation. My dear respectful mother, I have already described the path of understanding the absolute truth, by which one can come to understand the real truth of matter and spirit and their relationship. This one does not have a purport, so we'll move to text number 32. Please respond. jñāna-yogaś ca man-niṣṭho nairguṇyo bhakti-lakṣaṇaḥ dvayor api ekaḥ evārtho bhagavac-chabda-lakṣaṇaḥ jñāna-yogaś man-niṣṭho nairguṇyo bhakti-lakṣaṇaḥ dvayor api ekaḥ evārtho bhagavac-chabda-lakṣaṇaḥ jñāna-yogaś man-niṣṭho nairguṇyo bhakti-lakṣaṇaḥ dvayorapi ekaḥ evārtho bhagavac-chabda-lakṣaṇaḥ jñāna-yogaś man-niṣṭho nairguṇyo bhakti-lakṣaṇaḥ dvayorapi ekaḥ evārtho bhagavac-chabda-lakṣaṇaḥ. nairguṇyo bhakti-lakṣaṇaḥ dvayorapi ekaḥ evārtho bhagavac-chabda-lakṣaṇaḥ jñāna-yogaś man-niṣṭho nairguṇyo bhakti-lakṣaṇaḥ dvayorapi ekaḥ evārtho bhagavac-chabda-lakṣaṇaḥ. Vaishnavis, jñāna-yogaś man-niṣṭho nairguṇyo bhakti-lakṣaṇaḥ dvayorapi ekaḥ evārtho bhagavac-chabda-lakṣaṇaḥ. jñāna-yogaś man-niṣṭho nairguṇyo bhakti-lakṣaṇaḥ dvayorapi ekaḥ evārtho bhagavac-chabda-lakṣaṇaḥ. Synonyms, please respond. jñāna-yogaḥ, philosophical research. Cha and mat-niṣṭhaḥ, directed towards me. nairguṇyaḥ, free from the material modes of nature. Bhakti, devotional service. Lakṣaṇaḥ, named. Dvayor, of both. Api, moreover. ekaḥ, one. Eva, certainly. Arthaḥ, purpose. Bhagavat, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shabda, by the word. Lakṣaṇaḥ, signified. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Philosophical research culminates in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After achieving this understanding, when one becomes free from the material modes of nature, he attains the stage of devotional service. Either by devotional service directly or by philosophical research, one has to find the same destination, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please respond. Philosophical research culminates in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After achieving this understanding, when one becomes free from the material modes of nature, he attains the stage of devotional service. Either by devotional service directly or by philosophical research, one has to find the same destination, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that after many lives of philosophical research, the wise man ultimately comes to the point of knowing that Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is everything, and therefore he surrenders unto Him. Such serious students in philosophical research are rare, because they are very great souls. If by philosophical research one cannot come to the point of understanding the Supreme Person, then his task is not finished. His search in knowledge is still to be continued until he comes to the point of understanding the Supreme Lord in devotional service. The opportunity for direct touch with the personality of Godhead is given in Bhagavad-gita, where it is also said that those who take to other processes, namely the processes of philosophical speculation and mystic yoga practice, have much trouble. After many years of much trouble, a yogi or a wise philosopher may come to him, but his path is very troublesome, whereas the path of devotional service is easy for everyone. One can achieve the result of wise philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service, and unless one reaches the point of understanding the personality of Godhead by his mental speculation, all his research work is said to be simply a labor of love. The ultimate destination of the wise philosopher is to merge in the impersonal Brahman, but that Brahman is the effulgence of the Supreme Person. The Lord says in Bhagavad-gita 14.27, Brahmano hi pratishtaham amrita svaya yasya cha. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is indestructible and is the supreme bliss. The Lord is the supreme reservoir of all pleasure, including Brahman pleasure. Therefore, one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead is said to be already realized in impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. Translation once again. Philosophical research culminates in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After achieving this understanding, when one becomes free from the material modes of nature, he attains the stage of devotional service. Either by devotional service directly or by philosophical research, one has to find the same destination, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnānanjana-shalakaya Chakshur unmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna. We are continuing with Lord Kapila's instructions to his mother, Mother Devahuti. And in the previous verse, he has said to his mother that I have already described the path of understanding the absolute truth. And that path is simply devotional service or bhakti yoga. And here in this verse, he is talking about how even philosophical research, which is conducted by people, in fact, most of the people today in the world are conducting philosophical research. They're conducting the research, but they don't know what the goal of that research is. The goal is only one, to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's mentioned here in the translation that either by devotional service or by philosophical research, if a person finds the same destination, that is the Supreme Lord, then both processes are acceptable and both processes are going to actually lead to the same destination, that is Krishna. But philosophical research, as Srila Prabhupada has pointed in the purport, is very cumbersome, is very troublesome, because we get distracted by philosophical research. And philosophical research has the danger of speculation. Anytime we talk about philosophy or research, there is always a tendency for speculation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about speculation here. As human beings, we all want to give our opinions. Does everyone agree with me? That we all have our opinions, that I want to do this way. Somebody says, no, it should be done this way. A third person says it should be done that way. So we all have our opinions. And why do we have these opinions which lead us to speculate? Is because Krishna has given us free will. And because of this free will, we have taken the liberty to speculate philosophically. And we'll talk about how this can be very dangerous. So why do we speculate? Why in the first place do we resort to speculation? Because it is mentioned in the psychology journals that it feels safe to anticipate problems and outcomes rather than be confronted with any kind of uncertainty. And that is why most of us tend to speculate. So speculation on one side is going to lead to a wide variety of opinions, and some of them may be correct, some of them may not be correct. But speculation can be very dangerous. Why? Speculation for human beings is dangerous because of two reasons. We have imperfect senses and our knowledge is incomplete. Because of these two deficiencies, our speculations are not necessarily going to be in the correct direction. Some speculations, which we call hypothetical principles, may give rise to the correct target, but most of them will not. So in science, in the scientific field, it is very important to speculate. I'm coming from the scientific field, so I know how this works here. We rely on experimentation, which is based on hypotheses. And in science, as hypotheses can be proven correct or it can be proven incorrect. So one way or the other, we reach some kind of a conclusion. So speculation in science is very much needed because it's based on theoretical principles and it is proven through experimentation. But speculation in spiritual principles is not recommended because then we try to speculate based on our own mental capacities. And I told you earlier, our mental capacities are not perfect because of the four defects we have: imperfect senses, tendency to make mistakes, tendency to cheat, and also be in illusion. So since we all have these deficiencies, our speculations are going to be aberrant or full of error here. So what to speak of material speculation, even in spiritual speculation, we have to understand, when we're talking about the Lord is not on the material platform. The Lord is on the transcendental platform. So when we are trying to decipher what the other person means, we can misinterpret, we can conjecture, we can give rise to our own interpretations. And so if each one of us makes our own interpretation, there'll be billions of interpretations of the same statement. And that is why we have to rely on the knowledge coming through Shabda, not through Pratyaksha or Anuman. Those are important, by the way. Those are important in the material systems where we see something happen in Pratyaksha. And so for the material universe, those are important facets. But for spiritual understanding, Shabda has to be relied upon, which is being orally transmitted in the disciplic succession, coming straight from Krishna himself, and then being passed down through disciplic succession. So when we are trying to research to find God, that research is not cheap. That research is actually very complicated. Ved Vyas has given us so many scriptures. He's given us the four Vedas, then we have the Upanishads, and then we have Mahabharats and the Itihas and the Purans, and it's a very voluminous number of scriptures that we have. But for us, Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit, as we know very well, and Srila Prabhupada has said all that we need to learn about Krishna is mentioned in the Bhagavad Puran. So Srila Prabhupada has also written in terms of reaching the Lord through philosophical research. Bhagavad Gita 5.5 purport, I'm just going to read this, quote, "One who knows that the position reached by means of renunciation can also be attained by works and devotional service, and who therefore sees that the path of works and the path of renunciation are one, sees things as they are." So whether we are relying on devotional service or philosophical research, as long as we know that the ultimate goal of life is self-realization, and both paths are guided towards reaching that particular goal, both paths will lead us to Krishna. But in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has said here, philosophical research can get us really entrapped. It's very cumbersome and troublesome. So even when we are doing philosophical research, it is extremely crucial that we are under the guidance of an expert, a scholar, who can guide us in what direction to do philosophical research, what to make out of the data that we gather, how to interpret that data, and finally reach the conclusion. So as I was preparing my class, one folklore that came to my mind, which I'm sure most of you must have heard, it's an old Indian folklore. where there were 6 blind men. They were living in a village, and the village was ruled by a big king. And these 6 blind men had heard about an animal called elephant. And they were blind, so they had no idea what an elephant really looked like. So one day there was a big mela, a fair in the village, and the elephant came through. And so the villagers took pity on these 6 blind men, and they took them to that mela. And they said, since you have a desire to know what an elephant is, we're going to take you to an elephant. So all these 6 people started, because they were blind, they started touching the elephant, try to understand what the elephant really looks like. And here you can see it's all speculation here. So the first blind man touched the side of the animal, of the elephant. And the elephant had very thick skin. And when he saw that, he says, oh, the elephant is very smooth, like a wall. So it must be really solid like a wall. And then the second man came and put his head on the trunk of the elephant, trying to feel it in its blindness, and said, oh, this animal has a very large rope-like structure, so the elephant must be like a giant snake. The third man came and felt the elephant's tusks, and we know the tusks are very sharp here, and he said, oh, the elephant has very sharp things coming out of its, front portion of the body, so it must be as deadly as a spear. And the fourth blind man went in the back and touched the legs of the elephants, and he says, oh, these are very large legs, so the elephant must be like a cow. And the fifth blind man touched the ear of the elephant, elephants have very large ears, and said, oh, this is a very large ear and it moves back and forth, so the elephant probably looks like a fan. And finally, the sixth blind man touched the tiny tail of the elephant and said, oh, you're telling me so many big things about the elephant, but this elephant is simply like an old thin rope, because it was touching the tail. So all these 6 individuals were basing their understanding on mental speculation, totally speculation. They were not able to see, that was their deficiency, like physically see, but simply on the basis of touching, they were trying to understand what the elephant looks like. So if we try to understand Krishna in the same way, we will be completely misguided, because we cannot do that. And finally, the king came and said, all of you are resorting to mental speculation, but if you put all your 6 opinions together, you will understand the actual truth. So that is why speculation can be pretty dangerous here. And then it is also mentioned that if one has to find Krishna through philosophical research, that has to be done through the Sankhya philosophy. And so on one track we have Sankhya philosophy, on the other track we have devotional service or bhakti. So what does Sankhya actually teach us? What is the final goal of Sankhya philosophy? The goal is only one. From all the Sankhya philosophical perspectives that we learn is detachment from matter and understanding that we are parts and parcels of the Lord, not part and parcels of the material world. So that's Sankhya philosophy. Devotional service, on the opposite side, takes us more towards the positive attitude, and that is attachment to Krishna. So Sankhya relies more on detachment, while devotional service relies more on attachment to the Lord through seva and through sadhana. So both go hand in hand here. One can say, without being detached to the material sensual pleasures, I will not develop an attachment to Krishna. And another person may say, I will not get detached from matter until I develop attachment to Krishna. So it's a personal choice. For some of us, we get detached from material senses or sense enjoyment quickly, and then we get attached to Krishna. While others, by looking at the beauty of the Lord and looking at the wonderful association we have, through that positive nectar that we receive, we automatically slowly detach ourselves from matter. But the goal is very important to understand here. Simple detachment is not enough. After being detached from the material world, what do? We don't want to merge into the impersonal Brahman. We need positive reinforcement, and that is coming through seva to the Lord and his devotees. So both of them are going hand in hand, but for us as aspiring devotees, attachment to the Lord and his associates and his pastimes is very, very important here. And here, going back to the purport, which is talking about how philosophical research can be very troublesome, some examples that I want to share here very briefly are, we know from Chaitanya Leela, through the examples of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Prakashananda Saraswati, how both of them were great scholars and they had great Vedic knowledge, but they failed to understand the goal of that knowledge, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, later Lord Chaitanya came, and when Lord Chaitanya was asked, why are you just going to the streets and dancing and chanting? This does not suit a Vedic scholar. And Lord Chaitanya said, well, my spiritual master told me I'm a fool, so that is why I'm chanting and dancing. And then through Lord Chaitanya's instructions and very, very merciful guidance, both of these individuals actually understand that bhakti is the goal of life, and then they actually surrender to the Lord. Another example, which is really one of my favorite, if not the most favorite, is we don't need to engross ourselves in millions of books and millions of theories and millions of philosophical research and speculation. Simply loving the Lord will give us the sweet seed of bhakti, which will fructify one day and allow us to surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord. And the classic example, very simple and very sweet, is again Chaitanya Leela, Kolovecha Sridhar Brahman. All of you know this story. Kolovecha Sridhar, his name was Sridhar, was a very poor Brahman, and he lived in a hut which did not have a roof. It was a broken roof. The rain would come and the whole hut would get wet. He wore only tattered and worn out clothes. He was so poor, he didn't have any utensils in his home. He had a broken pot from which he would drink water. But his whole profession was selling banana leaves, banana fruits, radish, and pumpkin. So he used to do that, and whatever profit he had, 50% of the profit was utilized for worshipping Mother Ganga. He was so poor, but he would still give 50% of that profit to worshipping Mother Ganga. And he would always chant the name of Hari, Hari, Hari every single day. And Lord Chaitanya came to him one day and said, oh, you have a great fortune and you're hiding your great fortune. Show me that fortune. And the Brahman could not realize that Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he said, oh my Lord, I don't have a great fortune. I'm a very poor man. You're welcome to get my banana leaves and banana flowers. And Lord Chaitanya, there is a very beautiful pastimes where he did not pay him. And he was saying, I'm going to take all your banana leaves and so forth. And finally, Lord Chaitanya did his Mahaprakash Leela and showed his form to Sridhar, and then Sridhar surrendered to him. So Lord Chaitanya was completely softened by the love that Sridhar Kolovecha was showing to Krishna. He was a poor man, he was illiterate, but through his love for the Lord, he understood the basic goal of life. He did not resort to philosophical speculation. And when Lord Chaitanya offered to give him mystic siddhis and liberation, Kolovecha refused. He said, I simply want to be in a position that I never ever forget you, my Lord. So there was no question of Kolovecha reading Vedas and engaging in research, because love had already developed in his heart for the Lord. Another example that comes to mind is from Ramayana, which is the very sweet pastime between Shabari and Lord Ram. Shabari was a tribal woman and born in the forest. When she grew of age, her parents wanted to get her married. Remember, she's in a tribal sect, so she's part of the tribal society. And Shabari saw that while her parents were trying to get her married, they were going to sacrifice thousands of sheep and thousands of goats. And Shabari was very kind-hearted and very compassionate. When she saw that her father was gathering all these animals of the forest to sacrifice, to celebrate her marriage, she left her home one day completely left her home. She didn't want to get married, and she ran away to the jungle. And she was going in the jungle, in the forest, moving from one place to another, and she was seeing the rishi and the munis and the sages there, and she was asking, please give me shelter, please give me initiation, I want to become your disciple. And most of the sages refused. They said, you are coming from the lower tribal caste, we will not initiate you. Finally, one rishi by the name of Matanga Muni, Matanga Rishi, is very famous, he gave her shelter. And he accepted her. And he said, you live in my ashram, and every day you collect flowers for my worship, you clean the ashram, you look after the cows, that's your service. And when Matanga Rishi was leaving his body, she said, I will not be able to live alone, my Gurudev, please take me with you. And Matanga Rishi said, no, you have to wait in this ashram, because Lord Ram will be coming here soon, and you have to serve him. And then Matanga Rishi left his body, and Mother Shabri stayed in that ashram for years and years and years until she grew into an old woman. And her heart was waiting for Lord Ram to come. And she wanted to offer Lord Ram something nice. And she was in the forest. So the forest had wild berries growing. So she would collect berries every single day, thinking that Lord Ram will come now, Lord Ram will come now. But she had so much love for Lord Ram, and she wanted to give him the best. So she would eat those berries to make sure they're sweet and not sour, because she wanted to serve Lord Ram the sweetest of the fruit. So one day when Lord Ram came with his brother Lakshman, she fell at his feet and she offered him the berries. But she was tasting the berries, and whichever was sweet she was offering to the Lord. And we know we cannot do that to the Lord. We cannot taste anything, the bhoga, before offering to the Lord. That's an offense. It's blasphemy. And Lakshman became very annoyed. And he said, how dare you do this? You're contaminating the offering. And Lord Ram stopped him. He said, no, this is her love. And this is the love I'm tasting through the berries. And he happily accepted the berries from Shabri. So the point I'm trying to make here is, examples of Kolavecha and Shabri reflect clearly that the Lord is looking for love. He's not looking for a scholarship, a philosophical speculation and research. We can simply understand the love by following the examples of Sridhar and Shabri. And then in our line of Acharyas, Srila Sanatana Goswami himself is a classic example. He had the Chintamani stone, which could give anything you desire. If that stone would touch a piece of iron, the iron would become gold. But he threw that piece of stone in the trash. And when one Brahmin came who had meditated to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva had told him, go to Sanatana Goswami, he has the best fortune in the world. When he goes there, Sanatana Goswami said, go look into the trash can, you will find the stone there. And this Brahmin went and took the stone. He was very happy. And he said, I have the Chintamani stone, so I'll become really rich. So he went home, and then he started thinking, how is it possible that if this is the greatest fortune, why did Srila Sanatana Goswami put it in the trash? So that Brahman was very intelligent. So he went back to Sanatana Goswami and he said, if this is your greatest fortune, why did you throw it into the trash? Trash is meant for rubbish. And Sanatana Goswami said, I have even greater fortune than this, but are you ready to receive it? And then the Brahman said, yes. And then he initiated him into the Harinam, chanting of the holy name, which is the greatest treasure. And then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Harinam Chintamani had said that the Lord's holy names are the most important touchstone which yield all desires. And this is mentioned by our Acharyas simply through the process of hearing and chanting of the holy name. That is our biggest treasure here. So I just wanted to end here by talking about how for us as aspiring devotees, what Srila Prabhupada has given us. He's given us large number of books. He's given us fantastic purports, interpretations, particularly from the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. We know about the writings of Srila Jiva Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. It's amazing what we have. So through this wonderful alignment of Shastric knowledge that we are getting, as well as bhakti to the deity form, as well as serving Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, we have the whole package. All of us, when we buy something, we're always looking for a whole package. Am I getting the whole package? is the vendor cheating me by not giving me, something which should be part of the whole package? Srila Prabhupada has given us the package which is 100% complete. Seva, sadhana, sangha, sadachar, and swadhyaya. All 5 are encompassing the entire package. And we have to give equal importance to all of them. Whether we are conducting deity worship, whether we are cooking for the Lord, whether we are reading scriptures, whether we are associating, all of them have to be done with full enthusiasm. So, we can also conduct philosophical research, but we do not need to speculate, because all the knowledge is given in the books to us. We simply have to follow the word of the Lord, and through that we will actually never ever be deviated. But in all cases, one element is sincerity. We have to be sincere, we have to be simple, and we have to have the desire to serve the Lord. Without desire, we cannot make any advancement. So I'd like to end the class here. If anybody has any questions or feedbacks or corrections, I'm happy to hear. Yes, Rabindranath Prabhu.
Yeah, you mentioned about philosophical research. So that's mentioned in the Bhagavad-gita as the 20 items of knowledge. So is that what you were talking about? That kind of philosophical research?
The nomenclature used here is very broad here, and what is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita is actually aligned with this, yes. So eventually all knowledge from Gyan, we have to go towards Vigyan. So simply getting material knowledge is not enough. We do need to get transcendental knowledge. So of those, the one that you're mentioning, it is part of the philosophical knowledge. So we should not consider that philosophical research is speculation. That is knowledge which will eventually lead us to the Lord. If we actually convert Gyan to Jnana Yoga, that means we are utilizing that knowledge to establish a union with the Lord.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no more questions, yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, we were mentioned that pastime in the Ramayana about that one old lady was offering fruits to Ram. Is that in the Valmiki Ramayana, or is that in another?
It's in the Valmiki Ramayana.
Okay, if you give me that reference later on.
I will give you the reference.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Yes, that's in the Valmiki Ramayana. I normally resort to Valmiki Ramayana only.
Thank you very much. Just to add on what you said is a comment. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned that it says that learned transcendentalists, poets, philosophers have concluded that after doing too much tapasya, after all that learning, it should be used for glorifying the Supreme Lord. So in one way it's like renouncing all that, but giving that back to the Lord. And so that's the whole goal of whatever, knowledge or tapasya or austerities you do, it should be given to Krishna.
Absolutely. Whatever we do, whatever we learn, whatever we have gained is coming through the mercy of the Lord. It never belongs to us. Even our knowledge doesn't belong to us. That is given by the Lord. So we have to give it back to Him. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you very much for a wonderful class. So you were emphasizing love, like very, is the most important thing, right? And you gave the example of Kolavecha Siddhar and then another example. And in one sense, disregarding scholarship is not so important. So when we analyze the different type of devotees, like the neophyte devotee, the Madhyama devotee, the Uttama devotee, so one of the characteristics of the Uttama Bhakta is a strong knowledge, to the point that it cannot be defeated in knowledge. So how to reconcile that? In one sense, knowledge is important to the point that it's one of the characteristics of the Uttama Bhakta, but in the other sense also it's like not so important. So how to reconcile this?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Yeah, the 3 types of devotees. So an Uttama Adhikari does know that the goal of that knowledge is to develop love of God. And they have developed love of God. And now they're using that knowledge, at least in the modern age, to spread Krishna consciousness. So, the answer is actually very simple. No matter what platform we are on and how much knowledge we are gaining, if we, as Satchitananda Prabhu said very correctly, if we don't understand the goal of that knowledge is useless. No matter how scholarly somebody is, and classic example is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Very great Vedantist, but did not know the goal of that knowledge. So an Uttama Adhikari, and that knowledge is very important. I'm not saying these scriptures are not, we should not be reading scriptures, extremely important to read them because they are purifying for us and to understand Krishna's pastimes and to understand, what the Vedas are telling us in terms of how to be moralistic, ethical, lead a life full of purification. So eventually the Uttama Adhikari does understand that the goal of that knowledge is to develop love of God. But they choose to utilize this knowledge to educate people because not all of us have spontaneous love of God. So some of us develop love of God by reading about the beautiful pastimes of the Lord. Some of us are naturally inclined to be scholarly. So an Uttama Adhikari has the great advantage of discerning people and discriminating them based on their inclinations. So they can actually educate people according to their individual inclinations. That is the uniqueness of the Uttama Adhikari because they are at a very advanced level. And one example again is from our founder Acharya. When I was preparing for the class, I was thinking when Srila Prabhupada came, who is an Uttama Adhikari, he sat under a tree in Tompkins Parks. He did not open Bhagavatam at that point. He didn't have all his books under the tree. He was simply going with his kartal and his bong bong. That's all. And he was chanting. Because he knew the power of the holy name. And then the philosophy came later. Initially the attraction was through the music, through the chanting, the Mahamantra. And then later Srila Prabhupada gave philosophy. So as an Uttama Adhikari, the Uttama Adhikaris completely know that the goal of the knowledge is to develop love of God. And they've attained love of God. So that knowledge is extremely important. They should not discard that knowledge because in the modern age, like I said, people are of different inclinations, and so some of them can be approached through jnana, some of them can be approached through bhakti. As long as we educate people that self-realization involves understanding who we are and what my connection is with the Lord, whether it's through jnana, whether through dhyan, or whether it's through bhakti, the goal has to be reached. Eventually we are aiming for that goal. Some paths are difficult, some paths are easy. So we're taking the easy path thanks to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Mataji. In the Khola Vecha Sridhar pastime, it is a Leela, but once the Lord revealed himself, then he became a devotee. So we shouldn't be like that, right? Once Krishna reveals himself, prakat in front of me, then I will become devotee. How should we prepare, or how should we get qualified?
I would counteract by saying that Krishna has already revealed himself to us.
Yeah.
Right? Satchitananda Archa Vigraha. Yes. So non-different from Shyam Sundar in Kolok. Yeah. If we start thinking, this is just a immobilized, beautiful mannequin, that is blasphemy, and we will never advance in devotional service. So don't think that this deity is not revealed. Krishna is revealing himself to us. It is dependent on how we are visualizing the Lord, right? We have to decorate our eyes with the salve of love and then see with those eyes, and we can see, Krishna has revealed himself to us, right? And that is why Srila Prabhupada was really, really adamant about establishing deities in ISKCON temples. Why? Revelation. Otherwise, we'll be all impersonalistic Brahman, right? That is really, really dangerous. So deity worship gives us the understanding of the word that he used, Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? The word personality. So in order to understand personality, we have to see a personality. Otherwise, we'll be lost, kind of like focusing in space. So we should be very happy that the standard of worship in ISKCON temples is the topmost, highest ever. Ask anybody who comes to an ISKCON temple. Spectacularly clean, not a flower out of place, no leftover ghee, no black wicks, nothing. Everything is beautifully done here. And that is given for a reason by Srila Prabhupada, because this is how Krishna is living in Golok, right? You just have to see how beautiful the altar is. Flowers, the gold plating, the beautiful clothes, everything is reflection of probably Dwarka here, because we are new Dwarka, the opulence is quite evident here. So hopefully that answers. So I would say don't wait for Krishna to show his Prakat Leela. This is the revelation of Krishna. Very esoteric question and very philosophical question. How to develop Vrindavan mood in Dwarka? Remember, when these deities came, I was reading Mother Karuna's article in BTG when it was 50 years of celebration. They came as Radha Krishna, but looking at the opulence of the devotees, how they were dressing, they were renamed as Rukmini Dwarkadhish. So you have to remember the queens of Dwarka and the goddesses of fortunes and the gopis of Vrindavan are all descending from Radharani. So when you see Mother Rukmini, you see she is coming from Radharani. But then when you see the opulence of our deities, immediately Dwarka comes in mind. But to develop the mood of Vrindavan, I think it's a personal perspective. You have to see that Radha Krishna are the pinnacle, and when we see Rukmini Rani, particularly we are using the word Rukmini here, she is descending from Radha Rani, so there's no difference here. And of course, I've had devotees telling me the way you dress Krishna, the way you dress Rukmini, that mood develops. I know some devotees who follow the style of dressing for particularly Rukmini Rani in the mood of Radha Rani in Vrindavan, because gopis and Radha Rani in Vrindavan wears that chandrika. There's a special crown, chandrika. And some devotees prefer to put the chandrika on. And in that mood, you can kind of feel the mood of Radharani. But whether you're worshipping Rukmini Dwarkadish or Radha Shyam Sundar, you're worshipping Krishna either way. So there's no harm. And Srila Prabhupada has said to us very clearly in his books, I don't have the reference right now, we have to worship the Lord in a mood of awe and reverence. That means we have to worship them in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan. Because when we serve in the mood of opulence, we don't want to become complacent and feel very familiar with the Lord, which comes when the mood of conjugal relationship is established. We always want to remember that we always have to respect Krishna. And that is why that opulence is so important, that we revere the Lord as the king. Nobody becomes very familiar with the king. The king is at a very high position while the servant is at a very low position. So we always have to remember, we have to see them as Lakshmi Narayan and always be respectful in a mood of awe and reverence as given to us by Srila Prabhupada. And then each one of us has our own sweet relationship with the Lord. I always see them as Rukmini Dwarkadish because New Dwarka, opulence, but it doesn't matter because descending from Radharani. I think I'll end the class here. It's 8:40. Thank you so much, Prabhu. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.